Guys for tuning in. My name's Ayobami Kedar. This is the webinar that I owed you. Okay. This is the one that I was up here in old lady mode. Um, but I'm revitalized. Okay. I got the technology going, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna use the
Mhm.
right technologies for the right thing.
Yeah,
All right,
definitely.
so we're back again to talk about VA loans, right? And really, what's the truth behind VA loans? How you can get funded? What's the process? Like, what's what? Okay. So that's what we're here to do. So welcome. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Ayobami Kedar. I'm your host. I'll be I'm the veteran in this one. I'm also a realtor. And then we've got my partner today, Mr. Joseph Johnson. And this
What's
is
going
the
on,
money
guys?
man.
Yep. So today, yeah, we definitely, like she mentioned, we're gonna go over, bust some myths when it comes to, using your VA benefits to purchase a home with zero down. It's one of my favorite mortgage products. And yeah, we're gonna see how we can get you guys, qualified to purchase some real estate.
That's right. So let's dive right in, okay? Because time is of the essence and we value you
Yeah.
guys' time. So the first thing is, Joseph, who qualifies? Who is this actually for?
For sure. Yeah. So we have a few different buckets. So I'm just going order. So first, veterans. So those that served at least 90 consecutive days on active duty during wartime or served at least 181 days of active duty during peacetime. So that is classified as a veteran. I've had previous vets come to me. Unfortunately, they didn't meet the day requirements or the minimum requirements, and they weren't issued the COE or certificate of eligibility. They couldn't use that. So that is important to know. When it comes to active duty members that are currently serving at least 90 consecutive days of active service. Um, when it comes to National Guard and Reserve members, they have to complete 6 years of honorable service or serve 90 days of active duty during Title 10 orders, with at least 30 of those days being consecutive. Or were activated for federal service under Title 32 with at least 90 days, um, with at least 90 days and 30 days being consecutive. So, a few different requirements. Oh, let me touch on, I forgot we have, surviving spouses. A lot of people forget about that.
Mhm.
Surviving an unmarried or, unmarried spouse of a veteran who passed in service or had a service related disability. Unmarried spouses can qualify as well.
Yeah,
Um,
you know that spouse one is one. So first thing, guys, 90 days. Imagine
mhm.
that. Only 90 days. Like I think a lot of people don't understand. They think like, oh, I needed to have served like 20 years or
Right.
like that's a myth, guys. 90 days. And you can check, as Joseph said, certificate of eligibility. So go
Mhm.
online to va.gov and put your information in, get your
Mhm.
certificate of eligibility. It is so easy. It takes like 10-15 minutes at the most. Okay.
Yep. Literally super, super quick.
Mhm.
You can
And
get in
as
and
surviving spouses is one that actually um I know someone personally that used that and her husband passed away on active duty and she
mhm.
actually didn't even realize she had VA benefits.
Oh
So
wow. Yeah.
she purchased her first home using FHA. And then
Hmm.
after I talked to her and we talked about it, I'm like, you got VA benefits. She
Yeah.
used the VA to get her next house. So that's
Yeah.
a big one.
And another one on that one to touch typically is unmarried spouses, but a lot of people don't know, and I've learned this recently. A lot of people don't know a remarried spouse may qualify after the age of 57. So again, if your spouse passed during active duty and you remarry after the age of 57, you may be eligible as well as still a surviving spouse. So, that's a good one that I wasn't aware of
Yeah,
a little bit ago. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's one a lot of people forget.
got it. That's my
Yeah.
bad, guys. I thought I had silenced my telephone over here. My apologies. Let me silence that here. Yeah, so let's move to what's the myths that keep veterans renting, right?
Mhm.
So even active duty, you guys are renting. And let me tell you something. I was one of those people that was on a fence. I'm like, why should I buy a house when we're going to be here for 4 years? Like,
Right.
what's the benefit?
Hmm.
But depending on where you come in, it's a huge benefit, right?
Yeah.
'Cause are you going to gain equity just renting for 4 years? No,
Right.
you're not. And the best thing is try to get in a price point where when you exit, either you could rent the property out, if you get into a certain, where your numbers make sense, um,
Mhm.
or you sell and you're gonna make money. Okay, you're gonna make money.
Right.
So yes, absolutely, guys, use your housing allowance and
Hmm.
get a house. All right. So
Right.
these are some of the common myths here that we can talk through here. And the first one that a lot of people feel is that you can only use your VA benefits once.
Hmm. Right. Yeah. So that's a very big misconception. I've been in numerous situations where, a veteran, a returning veteran would come back and say, "Hey, I need to upgrade, or I want to move states. I want to relocate, but I've already used my VA benefit for my first home. Do I have to go conventional? Do I have to go FHA?" And the answer is no. Again, once we get the first thing that we're going to do is pull your certificate of eligibility, and that'll let us know how much entitlement you have left. 9 times out of 10, unless you're doing like really big jumbo loans, 9 times out of 10, after you purchase your first home, you have enough entitlement to purchase another home using zero down, right? So that COE will let us know everything once we get that pulled. In a lot of cases, yes, that's how, some veterans can do what we call house hacking. They'll purchase their first home using their VA benefit, stay there for a little bit, ideally a year, buy another home using a VA benefit, and that first home stays as a VA loan, and that can be a rental property, right?
Mhm.
So there are ways to it that, yeah, we can definitely get your second home using your same VA benefit as before.
That is the truth, guys. And we've done it. So this is
Yep.
no line here.
Yep.
The
100%.
next thing that holds people back is they feel like they need perfect credit. Um,
Hmm.
so just speak to that because it's such a huge
Yeah.
misconception.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I love the VA loan so much, because they're super relaxed on the guidelines compared to, like, a conventional loan or something like that. They kind of look out, for our veterans and active duty members, for everything that they've done for our country. So, yeah, perfect credit is you definitely don't have to have perfect credit. Technically per VA, if you were to Google it, the VA does not have a minimum FICO score requirement, right? So if you go to a lender and the lender says, "Hey, we can only do 640, we can only do 600," that means the lender has an overlay, right? But technically the VA does not have a minimum FICO score. Now the average you will see is about a 580 credit score. Some lenders can go a little bit less or will allow a little bit less. But yeah, perfect credit is definitely not needed. Even when it comes to, collections and charge-offs, underwriting is much more relaxed on those type of guidelines versus other financing options. So I've seen it all.
And let's talk about that because
Hmm.
first things that I've heard is I have school loans
Hmm.
and are
Right.
you paying them? And
Right.
if they're in forbearance, is it like it's in real forbearance, right? Not like you just decided to stop paying them. Like you guys
Yeah,
agreed and
exactly.
it's in forbearance. That's not an
Hmm.
issue.
Right.
Um, Another one I know people feel is collections. They're like,
Hmm.
I got stuff in collections.
Yeah. With the
It's
VA
the
loan,
same
that's
thing.
that's fine.
It's fine. As
Yeah.
long as you're paying. Now, you have to be paying, you have to be shown that you're paying, you have a plan to pay. And that
Hmm.
stuff can be provided to the bank for, if they need that information.
Yeah, if we need
But
it.
don't let
Because in
that
some
be a
cases,
holdup.
yeah, don't let it be a holdup. Definitely don't let collections and charge-offs hold you back. I would prefer you talk to us first. Let us do a soft pull on your credit, see what we're working with. In some cases, even if you're not on a payment plan, in some cases, depending on the age and how much and history, we won't require you to do anything, right? So yeah, it just depends, whether that's old repossessions or old medical collections. Again, the VA is super relaxed on those type of items. So I prefer, instead of you guys holding off thinking, "Oh, I can't, I have, I would prefer you speak with the professional first prior to kind of assuming, what can't be done when it really can be done."
There you go. That's right.
Yeah.
Stop assuming. Okay.
Right.
Um, Next is that you still have to pay PMI. So let's talk about what PMI is for people that don't know, if they're like a
Yeah.
first-time home buyer, and then the benefit of how you don't have to pay it.
Perfect. Yeah. So PMI stands for private mortgage insurance, or you hear the term mortgage insurance. And this is a type of insurance that is thrown into your mortgage payment that protects the lender only. It protects the lender if you were to foreclose in any way. It doesn't, not to be confused with hazardous insurance. Hazardous insurance protect you and your property, where PMI, private mortgage insurance or mortgage insurance protects the lender. And other programs has this as a requirement. Again, they're protecting their asset as well, but it comes at a cost to you as the buyer. With the VA loan, though, PMI is not a thing. So in some cases, this can save an individual 100, 200, $300 um, in their mortgage payment. Your mortgage payment can be less than other programs because you're not paying that private mortgage insurance that's required by other programs. So this will never be thrown on any type of VA loan, whether it's the first time, second time use, or further. But PMI is not a requirement when it comes to VA loans.
So it's saving you money, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. You've already served your country, okay?
Mhm.
And some people have made the ultimate sacrifice, and now you're a family member and you deserve to you're entitled to those benefits. And
Mhm.
that's what we're talking about is these are ways where people feel like they can't get in and there's barriers and obstacles for them to home ownership. And this is the way. We're offering you
Mhm.
something that you may not know. And so if this doesn't apply to you, share this with somebody that you know that it applies to, right?
Right.
There's so many veterans out here that are not using their benefits, and it blows
Hmm.
my mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
so the next one is the closing process, that it
Hmm.
takes forever for a VA loan to close.
Yeah. And that's another myth. And I feel like uh, that was made by, no offense, a lot of realtors, because they've maybe had a bad deal here or there. They want to blame that was because of VA loan. So veterans are some of the strongest borrowers that we have. But you still have some of those sales agents. If we present a VA loan offer on a property, they're like, I don't know, because they assume that they take a while to close because we're working with the VA and things like that. Again, because the guidelines are so relaxed, they close just as quick as any other loan. Of course, the typical contract is 30 days. But I've closed VA loans in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I have one right now to this day. It got cleared to close yesterday. And we don't close until the 18th of April. So we're 2 weeks, up. You know what I'm saying? It got, from start, from, pulling credit, getting pre-approved to under contract and ready to close. We're just waiting on documents, 2.5 weeks. So that's another big myth. Yeah, a lot of people badmouth the VA loan thinking it takes forever to close. Definitely not. If anything, it's one of the easiest ones and quickest ones to close versus some of the other programs that we have.
And I'll agree with that. I think too, some of it might be like where it's the whole process and they don't
Hmm.
realize like, whether we had inspection and then we had things we needed to address during that
Right.
period, so then
Hmm.
people kind of just all tie it together and it's like, as you
Yep.
said, it's the government, it takes forever.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't have to be, and that can happen on any loan product. So, but no, VA loans are definitely a solid loan product and can close just as fast as everything else.
Right? Stop doing that to the government, y'all.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about how so Joe's is about to put us in on some of these insider tips, right? Um, and how we can stack our benefits. So like let's talk about
Hmm.
some of the hidden costs, like fees and things that we're
Hmm.
worried about when we're going through the process, right?
Yeah.
If they're like a first-time home buyer, you're really nervous about how much money you have to put down. Of course, we're talking
Mhm.
about VA, so this is the no money down. But even with
Mhm.
that, is it really no money down? Is it stuff I'm going to have to come out of pocket for?
Right.
How does this really go?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So as far as like any like hidden fees or anything like that, the only fee that you have to worry about, and this is on a case by case basis, depending on the individual, is your funding fee. In some cases, the VA would charge a funding fee. but that is thrown on your loan balance. So if we're doing a $300,000 purchase, I can't calculate the fund fee off the top of my head, but let's say 5 grand, your funding fee will go on top of your loan. So 305,000 will be your loan amount, right? But again, if you're in most cases, a lot of veterans are exempt. We will know once we pull your certificate of eligibility if you are exempt from that funding fee. And I can tell you, if you have any level of disability, even 0% disability in some cases, you will be exempt from that funding fee all the way around, right? So the COE is what we call it. That'll let us know. So that's kind of the only fee you should worry about. Of course, it does depend on which lender that you're working with. Some lenders don't have your best interests at heart. Not to name drop, but I'm a name drop. Veterans United is not your friend. It's just a name. They bought the name Veterans United. Now everybody assume they're the beast at VA loans when they're really not. Not at all. They don't care about you as an individual. They just care about the dollars. So
Mhm.
if I were you, I would definitely, shop with us, me as your lender or someone local. But I would not recommend because some of them do have what we call hidden fees, charging you more on points or charging you more on your interest rate. They're
Mhm.
not gonna call and explain it to you. You're just gonna be like, okay, whatever, I'm getting a house. But yeah, that's
Okay, you
one of the
might just give
lenders.
me the keys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you definitely want to know what you're getting yourself into, because zero down sounds great, but how much is it going to cost to get zero down? If they're throwing in all this other, baloney on the transaction.
Mhm.
So yeah, just be careful of those and make sure you're working with a honest lender and ask those questions. Hey, do you do VA loans? How long have you been doing them? What do you do to look out for me as a buyer? Those are kind of the questions you want to ask and make sure you're not just on the phone with a salesman that wants to close deals. Make sure they actually care about you as an individual. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And then yeah, overlays. I kind of touched on that. Some lenders might have an overlay, but make sure don't let that stop you from calling other lenders to verify. Again, you might call one person, be like, oh, we only do 640, right? But your credit score might be a 620. Now you're thinking, dang, I can't use my VA benefit right now because I need a 640. Again, I just told you guys that the VA loan doesn't have a minimum FICO score requirement. So, you would do your due diligence and find another lender that will allow, you to do that. But in some cases, yes, some lenders will have what we call a credit overlay when it comes to your FICO score. And then as far as to touch on what should you prepare for as far as like out of pocket costs, a lot of people do misinform our veterans that yes, you can get into a home with no down payment. Cool. But we have to think about closing costs. All loans have closing costs. You can't avoid closing costs. Closing costs are the fees associated with us giving you the money for the loan. So the lender are going to have fees, and the title company who's doing the loan is going to have fees as well. This together equals your closing costs. Some cases, you might buy a $300,000 house, but you might have $10,000 in closing costs. You won't have a down payment, cool, but you'll have $10,000 in closing costs. And the ways to get that covered, would be a couple of options. Again, seller credits. You would have your real estate agent ask the seller, "Hey, do you mind giving us 7 grand in closing costs? Do you mind giving us 10 grand in closing costs?" If that's the case, if they say, "Yeah, let's do it," now we're getting the house with no money down, essentially, right? Because we have no down payment and we're getting our closing costs paid by the seller, right? So that's one way we can structure it. But let's say the seller is not in a position to provide closing costs. We can look at down payment assistance programs or what we call first time buyer assistance programs. These are programs for those purchasing their first home if you qualify from a credit and income standpoint. Well, these programs will give you the money for your closing costs. They'll give you money for your down payment and closing costs, but being that the VA loan doesn't have a down payment, essentially all your closing costs could be covered, right? So with these down payment assistance programs, just depending on they're citywide, countywide, statewide, and we have some, programs national wide, but in most cases, we can get you that type of assistance as well. If we don't do the seller credits. Or if we have to combine both, let's say you have 50,000, $20,000 in closing costs. If we need to get 10 from the seller and 10 from down payment assistance, we can do that as well to make this
Bingo.
happen for you so you could come out of pocket as little as possible. So yeah, that's why I say this loan product is one of my favorites because it just makes sense all the way around. from start to finish, as far as no money down, no private mortgage insurance, no credit. You don't have to have perfect credit. You can get seller credits to help with your closing costs, down payment assistance. You can really get in this home for very, very little money down. If anything.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's so many nuggets that you just dropped there. And I hope you guys are sitting here taking notes, okay?
Right.
Because you're sitting here watching a replay, because this is exclusive. I invited none of y'all, okay? So but there's so many nuggets that you just dropped there, Joseph. Like seriously,
Mhm.
the fact that you can combine, so as he said, you can combine down payment assistance and your VA benefits. So,
Mhm.
theoretically, of course, seller concessions is always a great move, and that's why me personally, I like the new construction because
Mhm.
those builders are
Yeah.
ready. Like they're like, I will take
Right.
whatever off. Let's do
Yeah,
it.
that's true. That's true.
Whereas, like existing homeowners, they might have a little bit more,
Hmm.
restrictions that they're looking at. So I mean, goodness gracious, that was just so much right there. And I just really hope
Yeah.
you guys really understood. And if you guys have questions, right? Because each person's situation is unique.
Hmm.
So in that case, let's get on the phone. Let's
Yeah.
talk, right? Because um with me, with that consultation, I'm gonna have Joseph on the phone with you if you don't have you're not pre-approved and you don't have
Hmm.
a mortgage professional that you're dealing with. We'll get on a phone together and we'll sit down and we can really discuss and get into details of what's going to work best for you.
Right.
Sometimes it leads to that this isn't the right time for you. You've got
Mhm.
things that you need to take care of. And in the next 2, 3 months, we can revisit. And that's
Mhm.
something, at least by then you'll have a punch list. So you'll know exactly what you need to work on. So you have clear targets of goals of things that you need to address.
Right.
Um, if you're using down payment assistance, then of course you need to get enrolled in that program,
Hmm.
right? And you need to do the little 6 hour class.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
that's something that you'd have to take into account with your schedule. But as far
Hmm.
as the timing of it, from start to finish, once you're approved and we get you rolling, we can get you in a house 30, max 45 days.
Yeah,
So
100%.
yeah, so this is what we're talking about. People that are moving and you're relocating, same
Hmm.
thing, right?
Hmm.
We can get you set up so when you hit the ground, you're already there, keys are in hand.
Yep.
Let's
Taking
go.
your closing pictures. Popping bottles. Yeah.
That's it.
Celebrate. Yep.
All right. So since we don't have any Q&As because
Mhm.
we went ahead and recorded this because of my little technical difficulties the other day. I was adamant I wanted you guys to have something to look at, okay, other than
Yeah,
our
yeah.
beautiful faces.
Right, right, right. Ah.
So if you guys are ready to take the next step, here's my contact information. This is on YouTube, so Joe's contact information is going to be in the description as well.
Mhm.
Let's get you guys set up. Let's book an appointment. Let's set a time to sit down and discuss and really make the plans for you to be a homeowner this year. Okay.
Let's
Because
do it.
there's so many deals right now in the Atlanta area. We have builders are trying to get $50,000 in credits, you guys.
Wow. That's impressive. Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Right now it's
seriously,
definitely a buyer's market. Because it's just so many homes and people need them sold. So definitely take advantage.
take
Um,
advantage.
don't be so locked in on interest rates. We have different ways to maneuver on interest rates too. It's not all about the rate. It's all about, are you comfortable with the mortgage payment that we quote you? Right. The
Hello.
first one of the first questions I'm gonna ask you is, hey, what is your max mortgage payment that you're willing to pay? 2 grand? All right, cool. I'm gonna work the numbers into that. If I come back and say it's a 7% rate, hey, you already agreed to a $2,000 mortgage payment. So it's still comfortable for your budget. Now, when rates come down, we can always do a refinance. So refinances are super, super easy for existing VA loans. You won't even have to send me a document. we'll have that thing closed in 2 weeks as well to refinance it to a lower rate when that time comes. But, don't wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate and wait.
And wait, hello. That's exactly what we did when with our
Yep.
first home. That's what we did. We purchased,
Mhm.
and then when it was time to leave, I'm like, hey, rates are lower. So we
Mhm.
refinanced at that lower rate and
Yep.
rented that thing out and headed
Yep.
on the
Head
way.
it out. That's how you do it. That's definitely the blueprint.
Yeah. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
guys, definitely don't be scared to
don't
hop on
be
a call.
scared. Don't be scared. And so this is really, I hope you guys really took the time. Appreciate you guys tuning in. And
Mhm.
please schedule. Stop thinking so hard. Stop assuming
Right.
that it's gonna be a no before you get the no. Like
Right.
stop living in fear and take action because
Yeah.
with that action, that can lead to more action. And with that leads to your ultimate goal of home ownership and
Right.
having not being able to be kicked out. It's not an apartment, no one's renting, it's more security.
Yep.
So
That's true.
um that's what I gotta say. And we'll be back. Okay, we're
Yeah,
doing
of
this every
course.
week. So we'll be back to educate you guys some more on your options,
Hmm.
and let you know. So shoot me a message, shoot Joseph a message. He services nationwide. So even if you're not trying to relocate with me here in Atlanta, he can still take care of you.
For sure. For sure. Yep. We
So
can make it
yeah, I mean,
happen.
at least, deal with people who care and we care.
Right.
And we're gonna be back. So we'll be back. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you guys next
Y'all have a
time.
good one.
All right.